Welcome, innovators, business owners, entrepreneurs, technology experts, academia, government R&D communities, and other members of the North Carolina innovation ecosystem. This is Defense Technology Talks, hosted by the North Carolina Defense Technology Transition Office, or NC DEFTECH. In this podcast, we will showcase various technologies with local and national experts who aim to solve complex national security problems. In the coming weeks, we will highlight North Carolinians with the potential to, or those that have positively contributed to enhancing the capabilities of our warfighters, law enforcement, and first responders. We will also feature government leaders in research and development who have helped shape the future in this domain. These podcasts are just one of the many free services provided by the North Carolina government to assist the North Carolina innovation ecosystem to thrive and provide solutions for our nation. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is your North Carolina Defense Technology Transition Office. I'm Rob Robinson, along with my colleague Bob Burton, and we have a special presentation for you today. We're doing a federal opportunities update, so we're still going to talk about opportunities that are out in the federal space, but we have a specific focus this week, and we are going to be talking about the Technology Scouting and the Technology Transition Acceleration Program, also known as TIDE. It's a lot of words, but one of the things that we want to cover is opportunities for you to get involved. One of the biggest things that's coming up, and Bob will cover this a little bit more in depth, is the Federal Construction Summit. But as we are looking for TIDE-related opportunities, or not even TIDE-related opportunities, but as we're looking for TIDE-related technologies, these technologies are going to feed into the large event that we're going to be running in April in accordance with and in support of the North Carolina Military Business Center. But without further ado, I'll pass it over to Bob and we'll dive into this a little bit deeper. Thanks.
All right. Hopefully at this point, everyone has seen the email that came out, the TIDE RFI. What's TIDE? Well, it's our technology scouting program here in North Carolina. TIDE stands for, as you can see on the chart, Technology, Innovation, Demonstration, Experimentation. We'll talk through those phases and what it means for your company. But as we work with industry, academia, and military innovators, the point and the goal is to grow the North Carolina economy. It's also to secure the defense industrial base, grow our innovation ecosystem as a whole state approach to national security. So we started the TIDE program a couple years ago, and it's been a great venue to scout technologies across the state to meet rapid and emerging tech requirements and needs. So basically, North Carolina needed a rapid touch point, a rapid program to find the technologies, create warfighter touch points on those technologies in order to inform requirements, and then to do demonstrations and experimentation with those technologies to determine the use case of the technology and also to determine how it best meets one of these rapid prototyping opportunities that the government agencies put out through commercial solution openings, the broad agency announcements, the SBIR program, or if you're a mature technology, then looking at how your current tech can be integrated to solve a problem today. It all starts with a warfighter need. We send those needs out daily through our DefTech network, those opportunities. Some are funded, some are not funded, but they're all tied to problems that the warfighter needs to solve today. So based on this chart, warfighter needs go to their higher headquarters where they become validated requirements. So they start with gaps or needs, they become validated requirements, where dollars are allocated towards the development, in particular the SBIR program, if it's early TRL. And that's what our ecosystem steps up and does that in our labs with companies teaming together, and they become capabilities that go back to the warfighter. Again, technology is just technology until it solves a warfighting challenge and is transitioned to become a warfighting capability. So there's a lot of great tech out there, but maybe is not a warfighting capability until it solves that particular challenge. So what we do is we showcase our North Carolina companies and your solutions to federal stakeholders. And like Rob said, we've got an opportunity to do that coming up with each one of the military business center large summits, from construction to textiles to medical. And then we've got an open and standing RFI to get after some of the critical and emerging technologies that the nation, that the White House, that DoD says are important, and then DefTech scouts those technologies. All we ask from our companies is to submit a one-page quad chart of your technology. We then share those quad charts, and you'll see in the announcement, those will be shared in a booklet that go out to all the government folks. They actually love those quad charts. When I retired about 3.5 years ago, that was one thing that we did was we would ask companies to submit a quad chart, a 4-block quad chart, and you'll still see that today. You'll see that whether it's in Vulcan Soft, you'll see it whether it's in broad agency announcements. Submit a quad chart. If you can't boil your technology and communicate it in less than 10 minutes on a 4-block quad chart, then it's too complicated. And we've seen some very complicated tech get narrowed down into this process, but it takes time. It takes practice, and that's what we provide in the DefTech network. We provide opportunities at the coffee call, and then we share these opportunities and your technologies with science and technology teams. But the goal is to focus on DoD modernization priorities, and you're going to see where this TIDE RFI is focused specifically on federal construction. So again, TIDE, what's the strategic approach? Well, there's a lot of disparate technologies out there. We then connect those technologies in the innovation space, which are where the problems are exposed to the defense industrial base in the form of commercial solution openings, broad agency announcements, cyber topics. That all happens in the innovation space. We then carry those technologies into demonstration and experimentation, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like on a coming slide. So our problem statement that we aim to solve at the national level in order to execute our mission of enabling the North Carolina innovation ecosystem to address these national security problems, again, they come out every single day and they need rapid solutions, is we assist the national security apparatus to maintain a holistic understanding of security impacts of new and emerging technologies that become disruptive and revolutionary capabilities. How do we do that? By scouting and finding leap-ahead technologies in North Carolina in order to accomplish these three outcomes of connecting on the problem, building a cyclical program. We're going to run a total of 4 TIDE programs and possibly more based on the needs of the government this year, just to find and scout specific technologies to solve a cluster of problems, and then create those external partnerships and teaming opportunities across the defense industrial base. Rob, do you mind kind of talking the strategic piece on how the importance of taking these disparate technologies, running them through this cycle, a TIDE cycle, in order to solve rapid emerging technology needs?
Yeah, so the bottom line is if there's not a process to get to the outcome, you're always going to be grasping at straws. And that's one of the difficult things about understanding the government space is the federal government has a certain way that they do things. If you don't fit in that certain way that they do things, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to connect on the problem, number one, and two, get that ever so critical warfighter touch point. So from a strategic standpoint, what we have done with TIDE is we have basically distilled your technology down to a quad chart that's easily accessible to the warfighters on the ground. That's one key aspect of it. But the other piece of it is we have to start generating a requirement or a desire for that requirement to be filled. And oftentimes, the soldiers that we are approaching, or the sailors, airmen, Marines, or whoever is in the uniform that we're trying to get this technology in front of, they may have some idea of what they need or what they want, but they don't know how to get it. And so it's a twofold approach. The one approach is we're identifying the technologies that the warfighter needs because they've told us, and those are what generate the requirements for the scouting process. And we present these technologies to them so they can vet them and say, hey, we like this one or we don't like that one. And what that does is it helps them narrow down their scope and those limited budget dollars that they have to focus in on the problem set that they are trying to solve. And some priorities are higher than others. So if you're trying to, solve an EW problem because you're going into an electronic warfare environment, then you're going to want that EW solution sooner rather than later. If you're looking at small UASs or robotics or cyber or whatever the platform is, you're always going to have different priorities amongst the stack. And then those priorities have to go into the federal government space, which if anyone has watched or paid attention to how government procurement goes at any point, it's always going to be a knife fight because everybody has different priorities that they're trying to accomplish within the government. And although we all may agree that this is the top priority for everyone, it may not get funded based off of other contributing factors that the warfighter may not see. So there's a balance there, and what we can do as a state entity is kind of help balance what's important from the warfighter plus what priorities are coming out from those higher headquarters organizations to narrow it down to be the most successful. And as this tide cycle alludes to, and we'll get into it a little bit more, we're focusing it on construction. And that is always something that's a big issue. But if you look at the news, how many organizations have problems with barracks or facilities on post or management of space? And so there's all these different requirements that come into play that it's not just, hey, can I put a soldier in this building? Or, hey, can I put a vehicle in this building? There's so much more to it, and it's a lot more comprehensive, and not everyone gets to see the full picture. But I'll pause there and pass it back to Bob.
So every year we have a standing tide cycle throughout the year, focusing on the national critical emerging technologies, the technology priority and areas of interest for the Undersecretary of Defense, Research and Engineering, what the DoD and the White House, what technologies they say are important. Of course, you can go through these and pull out the specific engineering focused, energy focused, environmental focused, advanced manufacturing, even autonomous systems and how that works with robotics and human machine interfaces for assisting with inspections of construction projects and other things, renewable energy generation, all of these things in order to build a capability for a stakeholder. Rob mentioned about government stakeholders. All the problems that we push out come from government stakeholders, and they have a say in this process. So everyone hopefully saw the TIDE RFI that went out. It's a request for information, request for technologies. We're looking for your tech. DoD, the Army Corps of Engineers, and Engineer Research Development Center are looking for your engineering technologies. We're going to conduct 2 info sessions today and next Monday, this at 3 o'clock. That'll be this afternoon. And then all we do is we ask companies, you got about 3 weeks to submit your quad chart. That's more than enough time. It's just 4 blocks, and we'll walk through that. We're then, then going to send out a notice to companies that have been selected. We have a rubric, selection criteria. All of this is to help you. We're positioning our companies to be successful with the government. And this process does that through using their rubrics to assess your technology, assess your quad chart and white paper, and to assess your technology pitch. And then we're going to do rehearsals at the coffee calls. And then those selected companies will get a chance to pitch your quad chart at the FedCom Summit. One thing from these summits, reason why it's important to submit and then to consider these opportunities, we've had companies win CRADAs from pitching their quad chart at a summit, and the right government agency had the right problem and they had the right solution, and that was a great connection. I'll hit just a couple of these with benefits for North Carolina companies, and I've already had, Rob, folks from outside North Carolina asking, hey, is this just for North Carolina? We're a North Carolina entity of the state government. However, we will accept technologies from outside North Carolina, but it may be more challenging for those companies to come and brief in person, depending on where they are. We've got companies as far as California, so you're welcome to submit. One of the ones I think is most important, increase DoD R&D efforts in North Carolina and partnerships with DoD and interagency offices. Also, connecting all of the industry, academia, and government folks together to collaborate on where the technology is going and what it means for DoD. For example, artificial intelligence. Where is that going and what does it mean for DoD? What does it mean for the academic sector? What does it mean for small business? And each use case, each outcome is going to be different, but it's really important to have these discussions on a quarterly basis at a minimum in order to look at and shift from a reactive posture of just waiting to a proactive posture where our companies are ready. They know what their requirements are. They're building out Vulcan soft profiles, and they're ready to submit when their opportunity comes along. So let's just look at the methodology behind this. Here it is in February. It's February 20th. We launched the TIDE cycle for this iteration. Next month, we will launch another Tide cycle focusing on textiles. The following month, we will launch another Tide cycle focusing on human performance and medical, trying to keep them as specific as possible. These RFIs go out as government validated requirements. Again, these requirements come from government agencies. We have a government sponsor for each one of these RFIs that will look at your technologies. All we ask for is a quad chart and a white paper. We believe there's going to be mass submissions. So we're casting the net very, very wide across the state, collecting these opportunities, these technologies, looking for the dual use application. Again, what is the commercial application? What is the military application? And then we build opportunity awareness. Hey, if you submit for this Tide cycle, you will then be able and qualified to and ready to submit for the openings that you'll see from ERDIC. And then, of course, you can join our coffee calls, our mobilized platform, practice your pitch, find teaming partners, and then do pitch events. And then we take, during the demonstration phase, you can conduct technology solution briefs, such as at the FedCon Federal Construction Summit in April. And then I'll have Rob talk just a little bit about why experimentation is important to integrate tech into full mission profiles.
Yeah, so experimentation is always important because, again, everybody briefs something that's PowerPoint deep, and that's interesting, but it doesn't really provide a solution. It legitimately just provides, hey, look, this is what I think my technology will do in a warfighting scenario. And it sounds a little bit shallow to say that, but the reality of it is when you look at the organizations that we have in the Department of Defense, they are all being courted by multiple different companies because they know that there's billions of dollars associated with the DoD apparatus. And so what they have to do is they have to be able to parse down what technology is important to them and limit, I won't say limit, but cull down the number of vendors that present information and technology to them, just because there's so many people out there that's trying to get that government dollar. And so that's part of the experimentation is if you can get your hands on it and you can show it that it works and people get excited about it, then again, it develops that demand signal that you're looking for, but it also gives you the opportunity to maybe get a experimentation sale, for lack of a better term. So you can do a no-cost loan to the unit that's there. They can do a small-scale purchase with a GPC card or through contracting to get you started into that government space, which you wouldn't normally have if you don't do the experiments. And we are lucky enough to have a partner in the state that hosts a very outstanding event every year. It's called the Defense Applications Expo. And one of the things that's pretty amazing about it, and we are just been lucky to be invited the last 2 years to participate in this event, is, Osprey Global Solutions puts this thing on. They basically cast out a wide net. So if you have a technology and you want to get it in the hands of a warfighter, pay attention to what else is going on, because not only do we have all the summits that we have throughout the course of the year, but we also have the Defense Applications Expo, and it's not an invite only, it is a partnership opportunity. So if you consider the opportunity to participate in with the Defense Applications Expo, you will literally get your technology integrated into a full mission profile in a live fire scenario in less than 96 hours. So if you have a technology that needs to get done, you bring the technology down there, you get it in the hands of warfighters. So these guys are all former special operations folks or current special operations folks that have the ability to participate, whether that be as observers or as part of the execution of the whole organization or the event. And then the other piece of it is you get actual end user feedback. And a lot of these guys are traveling because they're either working with private military companies in retirement, or they're doing some other type of contract work that allows them to go overseas and get current feedback from the current battle space. So you have people that have been going to and from Ukraine, you have people that are going to and from Africa, and so they can provide you those updates from the actual real world, and it can be in a venue that's a lot more open because it's two businesses talking by the government, who has classifications and all these different authorities that may prevent them from fully discussing the problem with you. So there's a lot of goodness that comes out of the Defense Applications Expo. The other part of it is it's a good time, and you get to see your kit in action. And for the sake of not naming the organization, I won't do that. But there's a couple companies that came to the DAX this year that worked off about $285,000 worth of cyber tasks that they had. just by showing up. So they had some certain requirements that they had to document and track for their SDTR that they were working, or I'm sorry, their SBIR that they're working with the Air Force. So they were able to bring their technical point of contact and work off some of the requirements, and each one of those requirements gets them paid on a task order. So they were able to make some money off of that event. So it's a small cost up front to get a warfighter touch points, and the results could be, larger dollars, or even accomplishing something that you're contracted to do anyway that could move your technology forward and give you the best opportunity to transition it.
So now you've heard the background, the methodology, our strategic approach. Let's talk a little bit now. Let's get down to the tactical level. You noticed on the last slide, and Rob mentioned this about connecting on the problem, the warfighter problem, understanding, getting those warfighter touch points and feedback so that you can discover what your use case is. You have to know the problem you solve. And if you don't know the government problem you solve or how many agencies you solve that for, you got to set up a call with your DEFTECH team. We'll help you find those use cases. But when you go to these events and talk to warfighters, they will give you use cases you never thought of. In other words, those are new markets. Those are new end users. Those are new customers for your solution. So simple, the problem, the solution, what's the impact, the TRL. For TIDE, we focus generally on technology level, readiness level 5 and 6. Looking at those early TRLs, when we talk 5 and 6, we're looking at demonstrating in a relevant environment. That's where that demonstration comes from. There must be a prototype available, and then there must be some sort of a deliverable that can be provided. But the key is, what's the impact of your solution? And then what is that end user payoff, that dual use application for your technology? Let's look at just a couple of examples. This is a slightly different format from another venue, but you can see the point. Some details, the problem that's being solved, how they're demonstrating, the technology readiness level, and then what is the future capability, the end user payoff, or that dual use application. Again, increasing waveform libraries for low probability of intercept and detect waveforms. Absolutely essential in today's contested environments. Let's look at one more. Technology description, the pros, the cons, the transition, and then most importantly to me is the warfighter payoff. In this case, it provides high quality, secure, long-range wireless communications for warfighters at a radically lower cost, size, weight, and power, or SWAP, than any other solution. It provides practical expansions of networks at the edge. So those are just a couple of examples of quad charts. We've had companies use these quad charts and literally get sales because they were able to pitch in a way that made sense to the end user. When you connect on the problem and you provide a unique solution, I like to say sales will generally follow. Of course, it's based on markets and availability, of course. Please, when you take a look at the RFI that went out, you're going to see access to the Google Drive. You're going to see evaluation criteria. We're not going to go through that. You can go ahead and click in there and see what the rubric looks like. There's additional information about our strategic approach. Again, this is a statewide process, but it has a national impact. And then you can see the RFI, the quad chart, as we just discussed. So what are we building up towards? Again, this particular RFI is building towards the Southeast Region Federal Construction Summit, and that's going to be in April. So that's coming up in 51 days. We want to highlight our companies. We're going to have a section where you get a chance to pitch, and actually some companies will actually get entrance for free based upon their quad charts. We will down select the quad charts, involve our government partners at the Engineer Research Development Center who have these problems, and they're going to be highlighted at the Army Corps of Engineers. One thing I wanted to highlight here, Army Corps of Engineers. Well, what do? Well, they're looking for your innovative technologies and capabilities to the warfighter for force protection and maneuver. You think of an infantry unit, of course, bridging and mobility and all of those things are absolutely important, but they're looking at innovative technologies to make the warfighting tasks and challenges to give us the advantage against adversaries. Everything from blast fragmentation, mitigation, evaluation of manned and unmanned ground vehicles, force projection, and the like. So we'll talk just to start to dive into these problem sets quickly. And as we start to wrap this up, you can read the information. We're trying to provide wave tops, and even still, the segment's probably going to be too long because there's a lot happening. So hopefully you'll set up a call with your DefTech team. We can go through this. But the Army Research and Development Center is looking to collaborate with innovators in industry, academia, and other sectors. We're creating those touch points through the TIDE program. Why? To help them solve their civil military engineering, geospatial sciences, water resources, environmental sciences for the nation's public good, and of course for the warfighter. Some of the technologies you're going to see in the RFI are cold regions research and engineering, CSO or commercial solutions opening. We took our technology areas directly from these opportunities. And you'll get a chance to brief in front of these organizations at the summit. Building cold region domain awareness, enhancing mobility and maneuverability, integrating ICE operations, and you can see the rest of these topic areas. And Rob, if you want to jump in on any of these, feel free. Another one of the CSOs that's out there is the Emergency and Operational Support CSO. They're looking for operational energy. Engineered resilient systems. They're looking for white papers. There's prototype opportunities for cybersecurity in construction. So, Rob, you want to grab one of these and kind of talk to the importance of these technology areas in engineered resilient systems?
Yeah, so again, when you think engineering, you always think about construction, either vertical or horizontal. But one of the things that is important is all the cybersecurity requirements. If you see what's going on in the world, you know the importance of securing your intellectual property as well as all of your data and communications. So, looking at cybersecurity, that's the big one. And it's not by accident that cybersecurity is up top, because it's very, very important. That should be one of the top priorities. And again, you can't have all the other things, the other categories that are underneath the cybersecurity without having cybersecurity. So we had a big, huge discussion about use of the cloud. Just recently, we've talked about FedRAMP, the FedRAMP opportunities. We've talked about how to secure all your technology. And again, we have tons of partners that are talking about cybersecurity as a topic. So if you are not looking at it, you probably need to. Even if you have a material solution, you still need to be able to protect whatever designs or plans that are going in there. And if you're on the cloud, there's a lot more requirements than there are if you're not on the cloud. And I would assure you that most people are in some capacity, whether that be through data storage or even if that's through data design, et cetera. But when you look at all these other categories, understanding how all these things fit together are very important. So anything that has high performance computing or data analytics, it's all pushing it closer and closer to the objective. And even though this is engineer centric, the objective may be, hey, look, how is the tide going to affect us having operations in this littoral area? Or how can we model the data over time? Can it be, if there's a chemical spill, if there's going to be drift analysis, whether that be by wind or by water or ground intrusion? So there's tons of different ways to look at all this stuff. And if you are specifically focused on another area, you may fall into one of these categories and you just don't know it yet. So that's why we encourage you to come to the summit. You may not be able to pitch immediately, but even if you just come for one day to kind of catch some of the panel discussions and walk the floor, you may bump into somebody that may need your expertise. And that's the difficulty, is as things are continuing to open back up and the pandemic is further and further away, one of the things that you have to consider is, where am I going to spend my dime and my time? And what I can tell you is majority of the North Carolina Military Business Center events have a lot of government people there. They have a lot of great panels, a lot of interesting touch points. So it's a much cheaper cost to come to, Wilmington or to Charlotte or wherever we're going if you're in state. And oh, by the way, if you're out of state, most of the events that we have are near major airports, so you could probably catch a hub flight and it'd be a little bit cheaper for you to get there. Not very many virtual options, but one of the virtual options that we do have when we do participate in these events is we will run a podcast either before or after or even during the summit to provide you updates with what is going on, so you understand the importance and what's best of the entire event. So all this stuff is very, very important, and we try and pull the thread for you so you don't have to. But what we can do is put people in the same place at the same time to give you the best opportunity to sit down and communicate with potential customers, clients, and partners. And I'll pause there, pass it back to Bob.
All right, we'll start to wrap this up, but you made a really good point, Rob, about folks may not know the use cases. You may submit. If you have a technology, submit. If you don't know where it fits, submit. We'll help you. As you go through this process, you're going to come to us with probably one, maybe two use cases. We'll give you an additional 5 or more use cases. And then as you talk to government folks at these events, like Rob said, they're going to give you a dozen more use cases that you never thought of. Each one of those is a new opportunity or potential revenue stream, different customers, different application. You might even find teaming partners for convergence of your technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning. They almost always go together, but they're very separate disciplines based upon the data. So as we wrap up, we've covered a lot of ground. This is just a snapshot of the RFI that went out. You can take a look at it. We run these cycles throughout the year to help government agencies pinpoint and get after and chase or scout or recon technologies that can solve their problems today. Again, all we ask for is a quad chart. It starts with a quad chart, a one-page white paper, and you can go through this. There's enough information in here. You saw the TIDE Google Drive. You'll see the areas of interest, and you'll learn more. And Rob gave a deep dive on cybersecurity, for example. You can go through and read the RFI, deep dive each one of these technology areas. You will find you can submit to more than one. Our intent is you not end at a quad chart. It's just the beginning. Everything starts with a quad chart, one-page white paper, communicating your solution to government problems, and then connecting with warfighters at these events. So it is a process. It is more than just a quad chart, but it starts with a quad chart. So I think we'll wrap it up there, Rob. I'd love to keep going, but folks can join at 3 o'clock and catch the replay and mobilize and learn a little bit more about this particular TIDE cycle. So back to you, Rob, to close us out.
Yeah, so a lot of ground covered in a little bit longer time, but not as much time as it's more time than we normally take, but not as much time as we could take. And I want to express that to you because there's so much information out there that you could spend an entire week just on your TIDE submission, let alone all the other things that we have going on. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is check out the DefTech website. We'll have information in there. If you have a question, feel free to reach out and call and comment on us. It would help us a lot by you communicating with us because there's a lot of companies that have gathered success just by having a conversation with us and the leads that were generated through the conversation. And normally we don't have time to do a one-on-one with every person that we encounter when we're at these events. It's literally just, hey, how's it going? Here's what we have coming up. Let me see your business card and your contact information. And that's usually how it goes. And sometimes it's a week turnaround for us to get back to you. Sometimes it's a month. Sometimes it's 2 months. Maybe it's a quarter. However, if you reach out to us and give us that nudge and say, hey, look, I met you at X event and we need to continue to have this conversation because I would like to know more, that makes it a lot easier on both parties, us and you, because we can schedule you a lot easier if we know what your requirements are and when you're available. But I will pause there for the sake of time. I'm Rob Robinson, along with my colleague Bob Burton. This has been your Federal Opportunities Update, specifically TIDE and construction focused this week. And we will talk to you guys next time. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Defense Technology Talks, hosted by the North Carolina Defense Technology Transition Office, or DefTech. The views expressed in this broadcast are solely those of the individual contributors. As indicated, DefTech does not take responsibility for those statements or opinions and accepts no responsibility or liability for any inaccuracy or omissions reported during this program. The content interviews are fair use for instructional purposes and to build awareness for the North Carolina innovation ecosystem. The full version of this presentation has been uploaded to our Mobilize platform. Mobilize is just another free service provided to you to access more national security and business collaboration opportunities. You can sign up for more information at deftech.nc.gov. Join us soon for the next podcast coming to a platform near you. DefTech is a subsidiary of the North Carolina Military Business Center and receives its support from Fayetteville Technical Community College.